Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to embark on a new journey, which is to talk about movies. Ideally I wouldn't call myself a reviewer or any person associated with cinema. I am here to share my opinions on what movies I watch, and preferably I hope some of what I feel also echoes towards you. So considering this is my first so-called review, we're going to be doing the review of possibly one of the worst movies I've seen in 2023, which is Animal. What can I say that hasn't already been said by a lot of Twitterati throughout the universe? This movie has had significantly polarizing experiences that everyone has gone through. But from my end, I can tell you three things. One, this movie is definitely not for people who are in search of good cinema. Two, this movie is not for people who will get easily triggered or will get offended or will feel bad or generally have a sense of what is right and wrong and have an idea of what constitutes a moral right. Those aren't the people that need to be watching this movie. And thirdly, this movie is not definitely for the people who necessarily believe that women are people, right? To a large extent, this movie tries to talk to you and almost belittles you with privilege, right? So what this movie starts with is Ranbir Kapoor as an old man talking about how it's a story of a monkey, and then moves on from there into his younger life where he never seems to have the love of his father. We've all seen absentee parentism. All of us have had our parents to some extent being absent in different portions of our life, and I think it has affected us and we're all traumatized by it. The question is not to belittle the fact that Sandeep Reddy or the protagonist in general has an experience which is so traumatic that it leads him to becoming a mass murderer. The fact is that the protagonist, which is Ranbir Kapoor's character named Ranvijay Singh, in and of itself is a psychopathic character who is then traumatized by this absenteeism. So the justification that you need to provide for you to make sure that this character has some amount of understanding and clarity as to what their character is should be based on the assumption, and should also be based on how you deliver those scenes to prove that Ranbir Kapoor actually understands that he's a psychopath, or probably is someone who is toxic beyond measure. But the problem is this: the more and more he grows up around misogyny, the more and more his father does not give two shits about his wife. The more and more he sees his sisters being belittled by their prospective husbands, the more and more he has a loving wife, he seems to be entrenched in misogyny through and through. It starts with him almost catcalling an engaged girl into saying that she is amazingly well endowed for child rearing, which is apparently how you would call any woman and you would try to get a date. I think that's a fairly new move. I don't know, is this a new trend that people want to start as to how you need to woo women? I don't know, seems like a very odd way of doing it. But when you move from there into talking about other things, like how his toxic masculinity becomes more and more about him dick waving with other people, him definitely just like tallywagging with his cousins and other people to make sure that this is the best way to protect his family, and the best way being ultra violence, which is filled with symbols of like phalluses, where you have huge guns, where you have huge knives, you have axes, you have a gory set of people just dying left, right and center without a possible reason as to why this threat is even legitimate, because the reason comes, believe it or not, at 2 hours and 45 minutes of the movie. till then you have no idea as to why a person is even targeting either Anil Kapoor or Anil Kapoor's family, which is terrible, right? But more than anything, the biggest problem with Animal is simply this. When you try to intellectualize misogyny, when you try to intellectualize sexism, when you try to intellectualize fascism, where, I mean, this movie is filled with fascist and phallic references. When you try to intellectualize them, you tend to start believing that your version of things are right. And the biggest problem and the biggest takeaway that you can have from this movie is that the more and more you tend to intellectualize your mindset and you start to make it a perspective, you sort of make it easy for people to take that perspective as sensationalism and carry it forward and start being vitriolic to other people. The more and more you start doing that, the more and more you lose value of cinema. Because you no longer want to engage with crowds, you want to engage with fans. 2, you no longer want to engage on educated, knowledge-based discussions as to what toxic masculinity can be, what absentee parentism can be, but you don't want to do that. All you want to do is prove that men can do whatever the hell they want, get away with it, call women whatever they want, do whatever they want to women, and make it harder for everybody in this world to survive. The last thing I think that is most important is we don't need more characters like Ranvijay Singh. We don't need Kabir Singh. We don't need Arjun Reddy. What we need are characters who possibly can be toxic, but either are redeemable or are irredeemable, but there is a justification as to why them being irredeemable is not a characteristic that we need to aspire to. In this case, Animal has all of its characters being glorified, obviously except the women. They're glorified, they are portrayed as superstars, they're giving rousing background scores, but just aren't given enough meat for you to understand why this movie even exists. That's all for you from me, and I hope you have a great weekend and hope you have a great week ahead. See you next time at the next movie that I will share my opinions with you. Thank you.